Hello everybody, welcome to the presentation of what to consider when setting up business process automation. My name is Serkar Aydin and I work at Allphone Group SA as a senior consultant residing currently in Dortmund. So let's start. First of all, let's thank all the general sponsors, in this case Cloud Labs by Spectre Systems. Thank you for making this possible. It is a big contribution to the community. So this is my subject. On the left-hand side, you can see my contact possibilities. If you enjoyed this session, I would appreciate that we just get in chat and discuss about the topics later on. So, what's going on? That's me. Yeah, as I said, I'm from Dortmund, currently 27 years old, working at the Allphone Group, dealing mostly with business process automation. So it means the departments of customers got some requests in automating their procedures. They're working with, for example, with Excel files and with mails, and they're looking forward for an end-to-end automation. And that's where I help them and build solutions which shorten up their manual efforts extremely. And also I am in the Microsoft 365 application service department, where we help customers and help the IT guys to have less work and concentrate on the important projects on their own. My current focus is my MBA IT Management study course, and I'm writing a blog, which is sposcripts.com. And below you can see my certifications. Yeah, enough from me. Let's get to the topics. Today, my agenda is split up in 4 points. It's about the customers we have, the input, the process, and the output. So let's start with the customers. As you can see, there are people, many people in there, and yeah, they're smiling or concentrated in this place. Just ask yourself, what does these guys have in common? What do they have in common? If you keep thinking that they're working all in the field with technical stuff, with engineering stuff, but also outside at construction area where they have different devices on, yeah. But also in the office, like the lady on the right corner. What I want to tell you is that all of our customers got different needs, and we have to take their sight, their perspective on the things we are automating. I think this gets clear with this picture. On the left hand side is he says 6, and the right hand side 9. And as you see, it is right, but it is a matter of perspective where you're looking from. Let's get to the automation journey. The automation journey splits up in 3 points: input, process, and output. The input is normally where the people type in some data. They can do it in formulas, in parameters, in scripts, or when you run scripts interactively, they can do it in with read host prompts. Then the process of the data, which can be fulfilled by flows, scripts, or runbooks, and the output, so the result. Yeah, we have to display the result of the automation. We can display it or export it. And below all of the stuff, there should be monitoring. So is the data entered correctly? Is the data processed correctly? And is the output is generated or not? So in this next few minutes, I will show you my strategies on input, process, and output, what to consider, what might help, what is from my point of view bad example, and how can we make it a bit better. So let's get to input. As you can see, we have here a formula. Yeah, the expectations to the customer, isn't that clear? Let's say the probability. What's meant with this? Is it should I write good or very safe, or should I write a number? It is not clear. Yeah, it is not clear what will happen with the data I will enter. It is not clear what type of data should I enter? And in this place, I think it is not that good. And as you can see, there's also no focus on essentials. Yeah, there are many things requested, like what should I say? The attachment, which is in this case not necessary, but also displayed the modified by. It is not necessary for the customer, for the end customer, for the engineer, let's say. And in this case, we should just leave it out. Yeah. And from my point of view, we should tend to seek one major aim. It is to request at least manual input as possible. What do I want to say with that? So, as you can see, we have the opportunity stage category. It is a text input box. As we know with text input, it might be some guys write initial, some guys write initialization. That makes it really hard to analyze it later on and to have a streamlined procedure afterwards. That's why my aim is to make less manual input as possible. And if it is necessary, then we should validate it. I will show you later on how we could achieve this. And the second aim should be, if you design an input like a formula, you should seek that this input is self-explaining. What do I mean? What I want to say is that I don't have to ask somebody what is probability in this case. It explains it for myself. Yeah, we will see it in the next few seconds. But if the probability is needed, we should look forward to make a close help. And if this not is helping either, we should consider a short, up-to-date help, which is very close to the input. We'll see it next. So this is a better example from my point of view, because in the beginning, it starts with an intro screen. As you can see here, it clears the expectations. Hey, what should I have? What is my job here as an engineer, as an office worker, or as a first line worker? What will happen here? Here you're seeing that the help is shown, the tooltip in this case, but also the short help for the details, yeah, which is excellently displayed here with the detailed descriptions, which is up to date. Also with the description how to enter the value. Here we are seeing it better. So it is, first of all, it is stripped into 4 segments. That makes it easier for users because it's not that overwhelming. As you can see, here's less input as possible because the product is a choice field, the stage is the choice field, and the probability is validating. That's what I said with if you have to make a manual input, validate the data. It helps the user because he's seeing, okay, I made a mistake here. I know exactly what to do here. Yeah? I need to know from 0 to 100 is okay. Above or below it is not okay. And with the purchase time frame, I'm displaying exactly what the short help is meant to be. Here, it displays exactly what is requested from the user. But if the user still feels unsafe, he can hover with the mouse over the field and he sees, oh, okay, when might it be about? Please enter time frame in month, e.g. 5. So he got an idea how to enter the data actually. And if he's still feeling unsafe, he can click on the question mark and see the detailed help. That's from my point, my basic concepts in the strategy of input design. Let's go over to the process. As you can see here on the left-hand side, we're changing here procedures. It is just an example to display you what I want to say. But in this point, I am never sure, where am I? Yeah, is it nearly at the end, my script, or is it in the beginning? What's going on there? And on the right-hand side, you can see a better example. Yeah, in the first place, the expectations will be cleared. They'll tell you, hey, you have 192 processes to change, and you can see the enumeration of each process. So it's way easier, and you know actually where you stand. That's what I'm saying here. So you get guided through the procedure. Exactly. The last point from my point of view is the output. If we check this, it just says this was successfully completed. It is the default output of Power Apps, which you can configure. I would recommend it to guide your user. So tell them what will happen next. What was the purpose of this entry? As you can see here, we do clear the expectations here also. We tell the user what's going on, and so the user is getting a better understanding of what will happen afterwards. So let's talk about questions, guys. What kind of questions do you got currently? Let me check the chat. Okay, no questions so far. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. I hope to give you a good overview of my strategy, how to improve business process automation in terms of seeing the user's perspective, the customer's perspective. And I would be happy if you just connect or Twitter or LinkedIn, just chatting about this stuff. Thank you for your attention.
Hey, Saka. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Saka, if you could also throw some light on any of the experience or the project that you worked on for some minutes, that would be really helpful.
When did the session start? I missed it. So yeah, for sure, for sure. The point is, when it comes from my experience in this procedures, I encountered that the IT guys, it looks like it is everything clear, and they have some sheets where they describe everything by detail. But we noticed in that mostly it is not that discussed with the end users, which will work day by day on the stuff. So from my point of view, involving them is key to get a better and efficient process out in the business process automation, Vidya.
Got it. Especially in the process automations, right?
Yeah, exactly. In the business process automation, because we are working there with people who mostly are not from the IT department. They are dealing with machines, they're dealing with chemistry, but not mostly with IT. They're designing machines. So taking out their vision, their view is helping us tremendously to make the process better.
Got it. And I do also have an additional questions. Nowadays, Teams has come up with a lot of collaboration applications where they are building a lot of automation can be built, and Teams can be used as a collaboration application, and it can be taught to most of the employees, and it's easy to use as well. Uh, any inputs that you want to share on that front?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as you said, Teams is a collaboration software, but with the Power Platform suite, you can also make use of the API to, for example, reflect the responses on Teams. So you can just chat the result of the process if it takes a bit longer over Teams when it is done. So the user experience for the point of the user is way better than over mail, because his Teams mostly is open all the time on mobile, on the desktop client, and if he receives a message, it is way faster for interaction than with mail, where he mostly look later on in this mail.
Yep, yep. That's a valid point. Thank you so much. And since we still have some more time, can we also talk more about what are the automation tools available in the market that we could without doing any much effort or without having a programming knowledge, can just go ahead and use it.
Hmm. Yeah, in this point, we got, I know two solutions there, which I'm using mostly at my customers. It is Nintex Forms for designing the formulas. From my point of view, it is very easy to use. You actually don't need, you even need less knowledge in developing forms than in Power Apps. And on the other side, you get Nintex workflows, which you can use for automating also the business processes. Yeah, Nintex workflows firstly started in SharePoint on premises, and afterwards they have established it also in the cloud. So in with Nintex Workflow Cloud, you can make use of it, and it makes a big development in terms of API and different. Yeah, sorry, my there's a word missing. It's called Schnittstellen in German. Yeah, and on the other side, you got the Microsoft Power Platform. Microsoft Power Platform is they have two tools for process automation with no or low code. It is Power Automate and Power Apps. With Power Automate, you can develop workflows or flows, which also have many Schnittstellen. Sorry about the word I'm not knowing currently. And with Power Apps, you can design the forms which you need to input the data and also to validate them. But from my point of view, for beginners, Nintex Forms is a bit easier to understand, since
Got
Power
got it.
Apps is way more rule based.
Okay, okay. It's actually a relief to know that there are tools available. Me being from a no coding background, it's good to know that there are tools available for me also to go ahead and explore them. Thank you for sharing that. The other question I have from a user perspective, right, or from the audience perspective, if somebody is planning to build a career around automation, uh, any insights or any inputs that you would like to share?
Yeah, for sure. Uh, Try to think what procedures are coming frequently and take much time. Just consider this. If you're considering this, you will notice, okay, um, the onboarding process, it takes way too long. It is actually somebody sending mails to someone, some sending back, and from that point on, I would look, okay, with which tools could I achieve a more efficient process, more efficient and effective, and then I would start with the learnings from Microsoft, for example, where you can learn how to automate these procedures. And also, I would recommend learning PowerShell, because PowerShell is the language of task automation and configuration. And if you learn the concepts of PowerShell, it will help you to develop the forms like in Power Apps, because you get the understanding of how the things are working when you're developing rules, for example.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Sarkar. And the other question, or the other thing I would like to know more about is, uh, you know, there are people, there are college graduates from the no coding background. Since there are a couple of applications already available like Power Apps, do you think starting the career directly with the Power Apps would help the people, or it's better to have a coding, have a bit of hands-on on the coding, so that would help me out in the future?
Mhm. Yeah, I also started my career in this point with no coding experience. I studied economic engineering, and I learned, actually I learned PowerShell in the beginning because Power Platform wasn't there so far, and for Nintex and Nintex Forms and Nintex Workflow, there is no coding needed at all. And I think from my point of view, it helps definitely if you learn coding to design the forms, for example, since there are many rules, and if you are going in detail with this, so it's not that on the surface, you will notice that coding might help, but it is absolutely not necessary. It just helps you to make it faster, to learn it, to adopt it from let's say PowerShell to Power Apps. And building up a career in business process automation is a very good choice from my point of view. The people are searched extremely, and the benefit of business process automation gets recognized more and more by businesses.
Yeah, I do agree with you because the world is moving in a way that, we want all the things to happen faster, quicker as possible, and at the right time. And most of the time, if we see, we spend a lot of time and probably in emailing or doing the repetitive work on a day-to-day basis. So definitely a business automation process would make things easier. And is if you don't have anything much to say, I think we are good to end the session.
I thank you very much for your time and your attention, and thank you for making this possible.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarka, and lovely having you on this session today. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
You also. Bye bye.
Thanks, Yatra. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. For soon.
Techoholic was conceptualized in mid-2018 as an open community platform. Techoholic connects industry professionals, vertical experts, and learners together, bringing real-world relevance and career exposure for enhanced learning. Our vision is to enable professionals and organizations to achieve more through the community collaboration. Our mission is to nurture industry-ready professionals who can enhance nosiness outcomes with skills on upcoming technology landscape. And our values are to make everyone shine by sharing our knowledge, bringing honor to individuals, encouraging innovation by using the latest technology, networking to enhance collaboration, and encouraging excellence in technology-enabled solutions. We are creating communities with the motto of Go Far, Go Together. We empower individuals to achieve more through their skills without worrying about anything else. We help our community members to become industry-renowned, self-dependent professionals. To achieve industry recognitions, you can join our community to work with our existing industry-renowned community leaders. Our community leaders could mentor you and provide the stage to work with local and global communities closely. Mentors can lead you to the next level of growth. Techaholic empowers individuals to achieve their career aspirations by connecting them with the right mentors who are proven industry veterans and subject matter experts. Internships help you with real-world experience. Today's students are tomorrow's leaders, so we will not leave you alone. We have open internship programs to onboard technology enthusiastic students through formal process. Lead your digital transformation assisted by our industry veterans and technology community experts. Our designs are centered around business and technical requirements. We optimize your cloud designs to enhance administration and user experience. We secure your cloud with defense in depth. We provide guidance on cloud governance and compliance. Techaholic can also help you solve problems like lack of flexibility in capacity and cost optimizations, time to execute, efficient remote working, and infrastructure monitoring. Techaholic is making it easier for both freelancers and organizations by inventing a new way of working with freelancers globally. As a freelancer, you can choose your assignments either through your own network or through our network. We take care of all the onboarding tasks so that you only focus on your assignment. We are continuously growing our community to help individuals and organizations in capability building with skill-based learning. In the ever-changing job roles, we are extending the learning outreach by nurturing the future-ready and most desired professionals in the industry. We bring together a large array of technology professionals with varied industrial accreditations, eager to help build enterprise solutions and enable the learners. Now let's look at some of the popular industry certification courses offered by Techaholic. Techaholic was conceptualized in mid-2018 as an open community platform. Techaholic connects industry professionals, vertical experts, and learners together, bringing real-world relevance and career exposure for enhanced learning. Our vision is to enable professionals and organizations to achieve more through the community collaboration. Our mission is to nurture industry-ready professionals who can enhance nosiness outcomes with skills on upcoming technology landscape. And our values are to make everyone shine by sharing our knowledge, bringing honor to individuals, encouraging innovation by using the latest technology, networking to enhance collaboration, and encouraging excellence in technology-enabled solutions. We are creating communities with the motto of Go Far, Go Together. We empower individuals to achieve more through their skills without worrying about anything else. We help our community members to become industry-renowned, self-dependent professionals. To achieve industry recognitions, you can join our community to work with our existing industry-renowned community leaders. Our community leaders could mentor you and provide the stage to work with local and global communities closely. Mentors can lead you to the next level of growth. Techaholic empowers individuals to achieve their career aspirations by connecting them with the right mentors who are proven industry veterans and subject matter experts. Internships help you with real-world experience. Today's students are tomorrow's leaders, so we will not leave you alone. We have open internship programs to onboard technology enthusiastic students through formal process. Lead your digital transformation assisted by our industry veterans and technology community experts. Our designs are centered around business and technical requirements. We optimize your cloud designs to enhance administration and user experience. We secure your cloud with defense in depth. We provide guidance on cloud governance and compliance. Techaholic can also help you solve problems like lack of flexibility in capacity and cost optimizations, time to execute, efficient remote working, and infrastructure monitoring. Techaholic is making it easier for both freelancers and organizations by inventing a new way of working with freelancers globally. As a freelancer, you can choose your assignments either through your own network or through our network. We take care of all the onboarding tasks so that you only focus on your assignment. We are continuously growing our community to help individuals and organizations in capability building with skill-based learning. In the ever-changing job roles, we are extending the learning outreach by nurturing the future-ready and most desired professionals in the industry. We bring together a large array of technology professionals with varied industrial accreditations, eager to help build enterprise solutions and enable the learners. Now let's look at some of the popular industry certification courses offered by Techaholic. was conceptualized in mid-2018 as an open community platform. Techaholic connects industry professionals, vertical experts, and learners together, bringing real-world relevance and career exposure for enhanced learning. Our vision is to enable professionals and organizations to achieve more through the community collaboration. Our mission is to nurture industry-ready professionals who can enhance nosiness outcomes with skills on upcoming technology landscape. And our values are to make everyone shine by sharing our knowledge, bringing honor to individuals, encouraging innovation by using the latest technology, networking to enhance collaboration, and encouraging excellence in technology-enabled solutions. We are creating communities with the motto of Go Far, Go Together. We empower individuals to achieve more through their skills without worrying about anything else. We help our community members to become industry-renowned, self-dependent professionals. To achieve industry recognitions, you can join our community to work with our existing industry-renowned community leaders. Our community leaders could mentor you and provide the stage to work with local and global communities closely. Mentors can lead you to the next level of growth. Techaholic empowers individuals to achieve their career aspirations by connecting them with the right mentors who are proven industry veterans and subject matter experts. Internships help you with real-world experience. Today's students are tomorrow's leaders, so we will not leave you alone. We have open internship programs to onboard technology enthusiastic students through formal process. Lead your digital transformation assisted by our industry veterans and technology community experts. Our designs are centered around business and technical requirements. We optimize your cloud designs to enhance administration and user experience. We secure your cloud with defense in depth. We provide guidance on cloud governance and compliance. Techaholic can also help you solve problems like lack of flexibility in capacity and cost optimizations, time to execute, efficient remote working, and infrastructure monitoring. Techaholic is making it easier for both freelancers and organizations by inventing a new way of working with freelancers globally. As a freelancer, you can choose your assignments either through your own network or through our network. We take care of all the onboarding tasks so that you only focus on your assignment. We are continuously growing our community to help individuals and organizations in capability building with skill-based learning. In the ever-changing job roles, we are extending the learning outreach by nurturing the future-ready and most desired professionals in the industry. We bring together a large array of technology professionals with varied industrial accreditations, eager to help build enterprise solutions and enable the learners. Now let's look at some of the popular industry certification courses offered by Techaholic.
Hi everyone. Today, my name is Taha, and I'm working in Microsoft as an Azure support escalation engineer. We will be talking about a new product. I wouldn't say new, but it's something that is still being used and updated, which is known as Azure Guest Configuration Policy. Okay, let me introduce our sponsors. That is Cloud Labs, and let me get started with the agenda. So our agenda will be to understand what is Azure Guest Configuration Policy, what is the agent about, which helps to enable this guest configuration policy, how to assign it, how to check the compliance, Azure portal, and what is the future roadmap of it. Okay, this will be more of a demo related session. I'll be showing you what happens within the VM, what is exactly available in the documents and stuff like that. So let me get started. So what is Azure Guest Configuration Policy? So there has been scenarios where we would like that to audit what is happening at the Azure cache, so not exactly Azure, at the OS level. So we have virtual machines which needs to be complying with CIA standards, with other international standards that are available, right? So in case you would like to audit, right now there is not much available from directly. So what we have done here is, if you had a domain environment, you use group policy to make sure that it is available. So similar to it, we have Azure policy, but that was only applicable for Azure resources. So what we have done is we have created a new product which will be checking things on the VM as well. and post that it will be giving you the requirement. We'll see some built-in policies which is available directly by the product team, and there are policies that you can create on your own as well. I'll be showing you the links which you can view and create your own as well, but this is more of to showcase how the products is and how you can use it. Okay, if you check the compliance from the portal and stuff like that. What happens in the backend, we'll be checking through the agent. Okay, this will give you a little insight what is happening and what we are using in the backend to achieve this. So the main usage of gas configuration policy is to audit, and there is a future roadmap to implement as well. It's currently in public preview, but definitely in short term it would be GA as well, and it will be good for use in production. Okay, so let me share my screen, just a minute. So sharing my browser. So in here we have the Azure portal. When you go to portal, you can go to policy tab. When you go to policy tab, you will see the normal Azure policies, right? Over here, if I go to definition, if I would like to see what are the gas configuration policies that are available, you need to go to categories, unselect here, and you can just type in gas configuration or just select it. So this will list down all the policies that are listed here. Okay, what exactly these are, it's basically everything has a different usage. This one goes for Azure security baseline, which basically checks with a different level of standards that Microsoft has created an Azure security benchmark. It compares it with that. I'll showcase it this as well. And if you go to deploy prerequisite to enable guest configuration policies on virtual machine, this basically means that you will be using this particular policy to deploy the agent which will do the basically checks of the configuration and stuff like that. Okay, before I go there, I'll just share the documentation that we'll be using. So this is the main doc that is used, and it is accessible using aka.ms/gcpol. The links are there in the PPT as well, which will be shared later. So if you see here, we require you to enable resource provider. This is taken care if you enable the policy using the portal. Okay, one more thing that before I go deep dive here is this is also applicable for on premises. Even though the word Azure is used, you can use in on premises as well, using something known as Azure Arc enabled for servers, which will have the agent by default within it. Okay, so coming back to the in deployment, as I said earlier, in order to deploy you require this initiative. What this initiative does is it basically enables the extension as your policy for extension. So if I go to portal and then I go to any virtual machine where I have enabled the guest configuration, let me just open extensions tab. So you can see we have something known as Azure policy for Windows, which is enabled for Windows. Same thing in over here. It also take care of something known as identity, which is managed identity. Over here, we require system assigned identity in order for it to work over the uh, guest configuration tests. Okay, so this is done by using this particular initiative. It will take care of it, it is Windows or Linux, it will have all this policy. Okay, so coming back over here, there are certain things that we need to know what happens in the backend. So we're using something known as PowerShell desired state configuration v3. How it is different from the previous PowerShell desired configuration is that over here you can have multiple configurations and there are different other advantages as well. And one more thing is when you're using this guest configuration, you don't really need to worry about if you're already having a configuration applied to your VM, because over here we are using the agent and we are side loading it. So it really doesn't conflicts with the PowerShell DSC that is already applied to you. in Linux, we are dependent on chef inspec for the performance, but however, we are now moving towards PowerShell desired state configuration v3, where what we are doing is basically we are using PowerShell 7, and we will be slowly moving towards PowerShell desired state configuration v3. So if somebody is using Linux right now, they don't need to worry because we will not be migrating it directly. Whichever previous built-in policies are, they are available till the time they want to move it over here. However, not all policies are available with PowerShell desired state configuration, and the same information is available over here. Sorry, over here. If I go here, guest configuration, so all the configurations are listed here, and whichever will be using PowerShell desired state configuration will be updated over here in this information. Again, no changes will be done. It will be up to you to make those changes. So validation, we'll see this over the VM. It happens like every 5 minutes. It will try to see if there is any changes, and it checks every 15 minutes for the policy. So before I go there, let's go to policy portal and see how can I see the compliance. So you see this is basically for all the Azure policies. But what if I just want to see the guest configuration from plans? So for guest configuration policy, there are multiple places, but the best and easiest place to check is using guest assignment view. So in order to get guest assignment view, you can just type in guest assignments. It basically lists down all the assignments that has been created. What is a guest assignment? It is nothing but with every guest configuration policy, there is an assignment that goes out and which will be telling you whether your policy is compliant or not compliant. So if I see here, I can see this is non-compliant. So if I click over here, it will give me more details with respect to what exactly the issue is. So if let this load, so you can see here it is giving me a lot of different details where it says ensured mount pointing, and it is also giving me a result that what exactly it is checking in order to confirm it is compliant or not compliant. Also, there is a point that to be noted is over here, it every 15 minutes this pointer will change. So right now it was last updated at 3:55 my time. Then it will be updated in next 15 minutes once again. So in case you see this figure to be an older one, that might be some issue like the service is stopped and stuff like that. We'll see that once we go on the VM as well. So over here you can see it talks about all the non-compliant one. We also have an option to see the compliant as well. But again, in the compliant one, it will just say that whatever the checks was, it is compliant. But if you would like to see the reason of non-compliant, it is over here. So if you come here and hover the icon over here, it explains you what exactly is missing. So over here it says the mode is 644, it should be 600, right? The access issue. So similarly for Windows, if I click over here, it will be giving me non-compliance for Windows as well. All this is available in two forms, like that this is something that the product team has created. However, if you would like something like other than what is mentioned here, you can create your own DSC configuration and apply it. I'll shortly go through the steps via the docs. Okay. Over here you can see that it is tracking for the different group policy, local policies, whether it was applied or it is not applied. Okay, all these configurations are based on Azure Security Benchmark. Okay, so the details are available on the Azure policy page. I'll be sharing the link for that as well. Going back to the Azure policy, whether I can view it from here as well, definitely I can view it from here as well. But what happens is there are certain amount of clicks that you need to go through. You can avoid it by going to guest assignment view and click release. What if I want to export this information? Can I do that? Definitely, you can export the compliance information using the Azure Resource Graph. So if I go to Resource Graph Explorer, and then Just a minute. So we have queries given here. There are sample queries that the product team has already created and showed in the demo in the documents. We can just go ahead and run it over here. So this will list all the non-compliance. Okay. Similarly, you can just play with this request to query and create your own required. Okay. There are certain samples that is already provided, like count of non-gas configuration, count of machines that are in scope, and also all the reasons which is related to non-compliance. So this helps when you'd like to export this information. Okay. If I go back to policy and before I go there, I'll showcase which are the clients that are supported. So we support almost all the major OSs, like from client we support Windows 10. There is 2012 to 2019 in Windows Server that we are supporting. In Linux we are supporting Amazon Linux 2 from Ubuntu 14.04 to 20.x. Almost the major versions that are there is being supported. Even in Red Hat we are supporting 7.4 to 8.x. One more thing that we have done is we have set a limitation on the agent. That is basically it will not make more than use of 5%. Okay, so this helps in case you are going to apply the auditing the agent on a server which is highly utilized. It is made in a way that it will not impact your performance. Okay, before we go any further, we require it to communicate over the network. Okay, so it requires, if you're using Azure, you can use the service tags as your infrastructure and storage. If you're using on firewall, you need to enable port 443 for this particular URL, start.gasconfiguration.azure.com. Okay, so now let's go through the process of assigning gas configuration. So again, as I said, you need to go to definitions, search for the gas configuration that you would like to assign. So there are multiple gas configuration built-in policies that are available. What I mean by built-in is that this is provided by the product team itself. Okay, so if I would like to know where the audit Windows machine which is on the DAC is not compliant. So if I click on assign, it will ask me to set the scope. Scope is nothing but the range of resource it needs to go to. So let's say if I would like to go to only one particular VM, I can select it, and then if I would like to make it only one particular resource, I'll just say save and apply. So this will now block it, and in GC Lab I have two VMs. It will block the Linux VM. The assignment name, it's up to you. You can modify or use the same. And a policy enforcement, it's basically to make sure that it is assigned. Parameters, over here there is no parameters used. Create managed identity. Managed identity is needed only if you are using with something with remediation, else it is good to leave it as it is. In case you would like to change the non-compliance message, once that is done, you can just click on create. This will now start assigning the policy. Once you have assigned the policy, it takes around 30 minutes for it to be effective. It all depends on how many ARM resources you have on your subscription. If you have less like I have, it will take around 10 to 15 minutes. Within that, it should be achieved. But an average of 30 minutes is needed for it to be activated. Once it is assigned, you can check the compliance by coming over here. Okay. Before I go anywhere, I'd just like to show this deploy prerequisites policy, that how many, let me go to view definition. So these are the 4 policies within this initiative. Again, what is policy initiative? It is nothing but a set of policies, and you can basically select which policy you would like to be part of. So over here we have created different policies and clubbed it into an initiative which will take care of any Windows or Linux VM which you're again in here we have option of enabling this for Arc servers as well. You do not need this policy to be assigned on Azure Arc servers because Arc server itself has the guest configuration agent. So that is something taken care by built-in by default. Sorry. So coming here, you can see it takes checks whether you have any managed identity or not. If not, it will create managed identity. In case you have a user assigned identity, it will make sure that it doesn't place with it. Initially, we had some issues where it was resetting any user assigned identity, which we have now taken care of by using another policy which only assigns system assigned and it doesn't touch the user assigned identities. And these are two to enable Windows agent and the Linux agent. Now going back to the policy, once this is done, whenever you assign it in policy, if it is a deploy if not exit like the one this is, if you already have VMs on your environment, then you'll have to create a remediation task. If once you have deployed this, basically assigned this, if there is any VM created in the future, it will not be needed, but only for VMs which are created earlier, you need to select which remediation. Like in case I have a Windows VM, I will select this, click on re-evaluating. This is not needed if you're getting the VMs listed here. This is only needed where you have just recently assigned it and you want it to be re-evaluating everything, and then click on here. Locations, in case you don't want every location to be, you can be a little specific here and select the location and click on remediate. Since I have to don't have any, I'll just click cancel here. Okay, so once this is done, you can go to your VM and check for any extension. So this is the extension that comes for VM. And similarly, if I would like to check for Linux, I can come over here and check for Linux. The extension is quite simple. For Windows is Azure policy for Windows, and for Linux it is Azure policy for Linux. Okay. The only difference between Windows and Linux is that Linux uses something known as chef inspec for now, but we will be soon migrating to PowerShell 7 DSC. Okay, so let me go to a VM which is already having here. So once you come over to the VM, we have the information whichever you apply coming to this configuration folder, which is coming under C program data gas config. You can see I have these many policies that are applied, and if I would like to see what is the DSC config here, I can come here and check that information as well. Like this one is to check whether I have TLS 1.2 enabled or not. So I'm sorry, I think I didn't share my that screen. So this is sorry, my bad, I forgot to share the whole screen. Okay, so coming to Windows VM, if you come here, the information comes under the gas config folder in C program data gas config. And if I go to configuration, it lists down all the configurations. Like here, this one is to check whether I have TLS 1.2 protocols enabled or not. If I'd like to see the config DSC config that is being used, I can just come over here and then check it out. What if I would like to see the information without applying it? The packages details are over here. Yeah, So the product team has created provided all the gas configuration packages which were used in order to create the built-in policy. They have done this in order for people to understand how the gas configuration is working, and in case they want to implement their own custom policy based on it. So you can come here, you can check which is the configuration and which are the DSC modules that are needed in order to it for work. So you can play around with it and create your own gas configuration policies. Going back to the VM, this is one place. Another important location is the DEC agent log files. So in case I have issues on my gas configuration agent, this is the log file where I'll get the information. Okay, so there is a service that gets installed when I install the extension, which is known as gas configuration. Just to showcase, let me just go there. Gas configuration service. If you are using an ARC service, you will have one more configuration service, that is gas configuration extension service, which take care of the extension feature available in the Azure Arc for enabled for servers. Okay, if I come back to the VM, so there are two logs here. One is known as GC agent, another is known as GC worker. What's the difference? GC agent will have all the information with respect to the built-in functionality. In case I have a custom policy that I have created, that particular information will come under GC underscore worker. So until unless I am using the built-in policy, custom policy, I don't really need to worry and go to GC underscore worker. All the information with respect to failures, if you see here, it is failed to get the token. So it is giving status code 400. Similarly, if I go scroll down, I'll find successful as well. So this log helps us in checking whether the policy was able to send the information, communicate to the agent endpoints or not. Okay, that really helps when you are facing some issue with respect to compliance. Okay, if I go back here and then if I'd like to check what is happening on my Linux server, so this is my Ubuntu machine, and if I would like to see what is the name of the service, so you can see the background process is gc underscore linux. Okay, there is a gc underscore worker also running, which is taking care of the policy that I have applied. So if I go to here, okay, there's one more place from where I can check the policy, that is under the virtual machine. Coming to policies view, it will list down all the policy that is associated with there. So if you see here, I have created another policy assigned. This is another built-in policy which is checking for whether this particular application is installed or not. So if I go to edit assignment, it will show me the parameter that I've entered. So if I come here and see gc underscore worker install application, so it is checking for this particular gas assignment. Okay, what if I would like to know more about the service? I can go to systemctl status gcd.service. This lays down all the information with respect to my gas configuration service in Linux environment. So if I would like to see where my information are, I will go to cd/where. So in here, we'll find every information going to be in gas config folder. So if I go to cd gas config, similar structure that we have seen in Windows, that is configuration download GC agent. So if I go to Windows once again, you can see the same structure is coming in Linux. We have kept that similarity, configuration download GC agent. However, if I go to cd configuration folder, the structure for DAC resources will be a little different because it is coming with chef inspect. So if I go to cd installed, can see it is having modules. In modules, it will have the inspect control. So in case I would like to see the information with respect to the guest configuration. Okay, there seems to be. I came out of the path. So controls is the place where I'll have the information. So if I go to controls, and I do cat linux.rb, so it gives me the information what it does. It is basically checking whether that particular package is installed or not. So this particular logic is coming from chef inspec, something similar to what we do in PowerShell DSC. However, this uses chef inspec, and again, now we can use PowerShell DSC for Linux as well, as we are having the PowerShell DSC version as well in this case agent. However, it will be a custom one. Okay, coming back. So coming back to the Azure portal and then going to policies, compliance, we have completed policy compliance, we have guest configuration agent, roadmap. Coming to roadmap, there are few things that is in public preview, that is remediation and behavior changes of PowerShell DSC in agent. So going to remediation, if I go back to, sorry, remediation option. So in PowerShell DSC, we known as set or apply. We have multiple different types. One is audit, which is the default nature of guest configuration policy that it will only check. But we also have something known as apply and monitor, apply and autocorrect. Again, all this information is in public preview. It is not yet GA, but definitely you can go ahead and try it out. Apply and monitor, what it will do is it will basically not make the changes. What you'll have to do is you'll have to come to the policy, and let's say suppose this is the policy, and then click on create remediation task in order to apply the set statement. So again, that will be depending what it will be, what is in your DSC configuration. Apply and autocorrect, it will check when it's non-compliant and it will automatically apply. Same feature is basically explained in here. What if I would like to disable it? You can type basically create a tag, edit your configuration and set it to audit as well. Okay, it explains about the policy enforcement. It also explains about how it remediate existing machines. And again, manually triggering remediation outside, same way, by coming over here, clicking and creating a remediation task. Okay, another changes is basically the behavior changes in DSC. So in DSC, we are now moving to PowerShell 7 DSC in here, and we have multiple configuration that we can say use instead of using this facility is available because we are no longer dependent on the local configuration. You can see the mode is set in package rather than local configuration, because it can be configured different per configuration when multiple configurations are assigned. parameter support through Azure Resource Manager. So again, right now there is one challenge where we cannot have one policy with multiple parameters, which is currently being worked on. It's in public preview, but there are certain challenges due to which we have not yet made it GA. What I meant by different parameters is basically, let's say this one. If I have this particular policy and I applied it on one VM. This one is looking for Google Chrome. But what if I would like this policy to be looking for, let's say, Microsoft Edge? So I can come here and I can put a semicolon and provide that information. However, if that information I would like it to be, let's say I would like to a different graph for cache config, Microsoft Edge, what we need would be a different policy assignment. Right now, that's not possible, but the product team is working on it to make it possible so that you can have different assignments for different parameters. So that's one changes. Okay, sequence of events, maximum site of configuration, special requirements for get. One more big change here is that it will be just a minute, yeah, this one. So it will be making use of PS DSC resources instead of PS desired configuration, which basically comes directly with Windows DSC. Why this was done is basically that with DSC v3 we have removed it from the PowerShell component and it is now a separate component. So that is explained over here. We have for more details in GitHub. Okay, coming back to the another change that is happening is you might be aware that we can use Azure Automation DSC, which now we are upgrading to have more features like multiple configurations and compliance view and stuff like that. You can migrate your Azure Automation DSC to guest configuration. The same planning has been explained. Why you can do it is you using Azure Resource Graph, managing multiple configuration. It also helps the remediation as well, and it can also basically the main use that you can use the same configuration that is there for Windows in Linux as well, until it is dependent on Windows component. Rest would be the same DSC configuration. It is now over here basically they have given the steps that what you need to make sure that is available in order to export the DSC configuration and then make the required changes and convert it into the Azure configuration policy. So this were the changes. Before I go to custom, I'll just let you know that when you're creating a custom Azure configuration policy, what you need is a different environment. In terms of environment, what I mean is you have to have, if you are using Linux, it needs to be Ubuntu 18 because that's where we have tested the PowerShell module. For others, we have not. Again, it is only needed for authoring purpose. Rest it will be same for every other supported client. So in Linux we require this package, in Windows we require minimum this package, and the guest configuration module, which requires you to have PowerShell 5.9 or higher, and the PS desired configuration module. So you can import in and install it using the PowerShell gallery. This will set your information. Once that is done, you can create your own custom guest configuration package artifacts. What is artifacts is nothing but in order to create the guest configuration policies, there are certain files that are needed. So for that, you just need a mop file. Well, the mop file would be nothing but your configuration that you are creating. Once you have created that guest configuration mop file, you can run the command. Okay, so you can run the command this one, new guest configuration package, provide the configuration detail, provide the name, you type. Again, this is the type which we saw in remediation. If it is setting something, it will be audit and set. If it is just auditing, it will be audit. Okay, Then once that is done, it creates a zip package which is known as the guest configuration artifact, and this explains what exactly it will have. It will be having a complete DSC configuration. It will have a guest configuration module, any DSC native resource. When we say this is nothing but the DSC requirement and other DSC resources that you might have used. Like if I come here, you can see these DSC modules, right? Local group, secure and protocol. So all that would be coming to that particular zip package. And the meta config is the thing that explains us that it's a guest configuration, what will be the assignment name and stuff like that. Same thing, once that is created, you need to test it out. Why do I need to test it? It is to make sure that once you convert into the policy works fine. Okay. You can also sign in your packages, and once that is signing again, signing is something that it's needed for you. You can do it, else you can skip it. Publishing the package is nothing but you will be providing a storage account details where that package information will be stored. And then once you publish it, if I come to policy and then go to definition, it will start listing me the information. Again, I might not have it here. So if I go to policy and in here I select custom, okay, so right now I don't have it, so it's giving blank. But if I once I publish it, it will come, the policy will get listed over here. Only then you will be able to assign it to your environment. Okay, create a guest configuration assignment. So this is now explaining you the same things built in a custom configurations, extending other resource types like can you build, and how you can implement using ARM template. Again, the recommended way to assign guest configuration policy is to use the Azure portal, but you can also make use of different methods like Azure Resource Manager, Bicep, and also Terraform. Okay. So this is package artifact. Same thing explained in one single go. And important thing over here is with respect to policy lifecycle. In case you are updating your custom package, you should make sure that the version property is updated. Okay, it will help sure that you are able to have the uh, latest version showing in the published store. Okay. Yep, I think I'm good. Yeah, that should be all from my end with respect to this. I'm open to any question and answers.
Thanks, Raj Taha. That was a great session. We didn't get any questions from YouTube as comments. So
Sure.
probably since it's a recorded one, we might get it later. Anyone watching this later might ask questions. So when we
Sure.
get, we will collect it and share it to you.
Cool, person. Thanks.
Thanks a lot joining us, Taha.
Sure, person. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Techaholic was conceptualized in mid-2018 as an open community platform. Techaholic connects industry professionals, vertical experts, and learners together, bringing real-world relevance and career exposure for enhanced learning. Our vision is to enable professionals and organizations to achieve more through the community collaboration. Our mission is to nurture industry-ready professionals who can enhance nosiness outcomes with skills on upcoming technology landscape. And our values are to make everyone shine by sharing our knowledge, bringing honor to individuals, encouraging innovation by using the latest technology, networking to enhance collaboration, and encouraging excellence in technology-enabled solutions. We are creating communities with the motto of Go Far, Go Together. We empower individuals to achieve more through their skills without worrying about anything else. We help our community members to become industry-renowned, self-dependent professionals. To achieve industry recognitions, you can join our community to work with our existing industry-renowned community leaders. Our community leaders could mentor you and provide the stage to work with local and the global communities closely. Mentors can lead you to the next level of growth. Techaholic empowers individuals to achieve their career aspirations by connecting them with the right mentors who are proven industry veterans and subject matter experts. Internships help you with real-world experience. Today's students are tomorrow's leaders, so we will not leave you alone. We have open internship programs to onboard technology enthusiastic students through formal process. Lead your digital transformation assisted by our industry veterans and technology community experts. Our designs are centered around business and technical requirements. We optimize your cloud designs to enhance administration and user experience. We secure your cloud with defense in depth. We provide guidance on cloud governance and compliance. Techaholic can also help you solve problems like lack of flexibility in capacity and cost optimizations, time to execute, efficient remote working, and infrastructure monitoring. Techaholic is making it easier for both freelancers and organizations by inventing a new way of working with freelancers globally. As a freelancer, you can choose your assignments either through your own network or through our network. We take care of all the onboarding tasks so that you only focus on your assignment. We are continuously growing our community to help individuals and organizations in capability building with skill-based learning. In the ever-changing job roles, we are extending the learning outreach by nurturing the future-ready and most desired professionals in the industry. We bring together a large array of technology professionals with varied industrial accreditations, eager to help build enterprise solutions and enable the learners. Now let's look at some of the popular industry certification courses offered by Techaholic.
pdcconf.in. Let me get my presentation up here real quick. So welcome. My name is Justin Grody. I'll be providing a presentation called Presto Pester, Testing PowerShell with Visual Studio Code. My name is Justin Grody. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I'll be going through just a bit about what Pester is. This won't be so much like a class on Pester. There's tons of that. But I'll show how to utilize a new extension that I've been developing to do testing with PowerShell and VS Code to make it a lot easier to sort of test your scripts and see how things are going and make sure you kind of help develop more reliable code. And then after that, I'll kind of go a little bit also into how the extension was made, talk a little bit about how to be able to utilize PowerShell inside Visual Studio Code extensions if you ever want to write your own or use it in anywhere that you kind of utilize TypeScript, and a little bit about my journey there. Again, thank you to all our generous sponsors, Cloud Labs and Microsoft, and the entire community that allows these kind of things to happen, and the conference organizers that allow me to get up here very early in my United States time to bring this information to you. So I don't have too many slides. I have a slide that I will bring forward here in a little bit, but for the we'll start out just with a very simple Visual Studio Code page. So here I have sort of a list of tests over here on the right. And if you've never seen a Pester test before, they're actually fairly simple. Is that a Pester test starts with a describe statement, which just simply describes this is a group of tests that I have that I want to show and demonstrate something that I want to test. Like maybe I want to test a script, maybe I want to test some live commands that I have, something that I want to test. Just sort of describes the group of those things. Under that, I can optionally have a context, which again is just another sort of grouping container that allows me to say what all these tests are related to. So for a script, it might be testing one particular parameter of the script, or it might be testing a certain environment of the script. And that allows these groupings sort of allow you to set all kinds of certain settings or do some kind of test setup around that, which I'm not going to go too much into at this moment. But then I have tests where I simply define what they do. And typically you use this should command on the pipeline where you have something that you're testing. So you do something with the command, and then whatever results you want to make sure that it's something. Like for instance, it should be true. So let me reset my test results here. So typically to run these kind of tests, you would have like a PowerShell command line. And I can go ahead and open a separate one here to kind of give another example of what that looks like. When you wanted to run some tests in your thing, you would have your project here, wherever you have it, and you type invoke pester. And in this case, I'm going to do output detail to show a little bit more stuff here. So when you run this, it goes through and it runs all the tests. And so if I scroll up here, okay, we got our basic. These tests, which are supposed to succeed, all passed, great, and give us a little information about the timing of those. Here's some failed tests. Let's know, oh no, this test failed. This guy is not looking good, and where exactly it failed. You're going to kind of go through here and read this and see where your issues are, see that things are skipped. Maybe you have test cases, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But this kind of gives you an idea of like a bunch of different tests. This is typically how you would run Pester. And then you look at these, kind of try to find your issue, and then go forward from there. Maybe you run these as part of a script, as part of some process, like a GitHub action or an Azure DevOps that would also notify you like every time you commit if there's an issue. But the problem with that is that you have to remember to run invoke pester, especially after you, like, say, make changes or do anything like that. And it's also, you always have to go back to the command line every time you want to run a test. So while that's not very super friendly, part of that helped me inspire me to write this additional extension to make Pester a lot simpler. So this is Visual Studio Code, which should be your default editor for editing PowerShell these days. There are also other great platforms, but Visual Studio Code is the de facto and quote unquote official default editor for PowerShell. And when you have a test here, you have these. And so what this extension does is, if you look over here on the right, I have this new Test Explorer. And this Test Explorer, you can put anywhere. Like, you can have it be its own separate little thing, or you can have it be part of the run and debug, as I had it here. Let me go ahead and reload my window here real quick. You can drag it really anywhere you want. It's just another pane. thing, and it'll automatically, as soon as it comes up, you noticed it came up and it found all the test files in my folder. And if you want to customize that behavior, you can. There's a setting for it. But basically, I have my pester tests here for stuff that I'm testing in my script. And so if I go to an individual one here, pester will go ahead and scan and find all the tests that are in that pester file. So if you look here, I have my it true. There's basic succeeds true, basic succeeds true. And in fact, I can click this little icon and go directly to any of these tests and go to see what's going on there. So then if I want to run my test, I can run it one of many different ways. I can go ahead and click this start button here, and that will go ahead and run my test. I can go to, click the sort of summary one, which will run all the tests in that group. I can run the test over here as well, which will run the test in all those different locations. And you can see, I can see which test worked, which test failed, and a sort of timing of what they have. So now I have this really nice aspect where, like, whenever I need to run a test, I just have this nice little place I can put it. And I have I like having this bar over here on the right for VS Code. If this is on the left, you'd see it over there. But I can also like take this and detach it and put it down here. Oh, I'm running a preview version, which I might need to reload in order to show that working. Yeah, so here's my test explorer down here. Normally this just, if you're using the stable version, this just comes up right away. And so, you know, I kind of have my choice of where I want to put this test explorer for whatever works for me to be able to go through, look at my tests, and see if they're working. So another recent addition is that I can see the changes in my tests in real time. So if I want to take something here, if I have a test that is false, you know, if this test is true, or I want to change this to true should be false, if I break this test, as soon as I save, it goes ahead and automatically reruns the test. And you can see here, I also get a nice little error lens that tells me in sort of a nice sort of view of what, you know, is expected with the messages. If I click this, I get this nice little detail view called a peek view, which shows me what it was supposed to be, what it actually was, and sort of the test history of this particular test and how that ran. So I can see here in the past, you know, this test has normally been fine, but then here's a time when I did this particular test run, it failed along with these other tests. So that's nice. We have this really nice way of seeing our tests, running them, and then again, so once I realize I figure out what my problem was, or I fix my script, I just make the change, hit save, and it automatically updates and checks. It's like, okay, great, my test is working again, as well as showing down here. You can filter on individual aspects of the tests. So for instance, if I just want to see my fails tests, do this, and it'll only show me those. And there are different views you can do. You have a tree view and a list view, as well as you can sort by put the failed tests up to the top. You have all those kind of views. And a lot of this is all part of a new Visual Studio Code API that they provide called the testing API. And so I'm just implementing this for Pester. But the nice thing is that we also have this API for any other program that wants to do it, can do it in kind of a nice standardized way. So for instance, if I look at my Visual Studio Code adapter environment, you'll see my Test Explorer actually has this jest provider, which is a test provider like Pester, but for TypeScript. And so, but I get all the same kind of nice view and same view of my tests and running them and doing all the same stuff that I was doing before and being able to do all that kind of work. But I also see my Pester tests right alongside them. So you have this nice standard view for everything you do, which is one of the really nice things about VS Code is if you want to change languages or work on something else, you can operate in the same environment. And like, you know, you don't have to relearn how things work or learn a new program. You're just doing the work inside this particular aspect or program. So now that I have that, just showing that, let me go back to my tests. I'm going to take my Test Explorer and put him back over here. Reload again, do that little bug. Sorry about that. So one of the things I can do too is sometimes I want to debug my tests. So let's say I have a test here and I'm not quite sure why it's failing. So like for instance, you know, here's a situation. This is a pretty simple test that has a throw. But what I can do is I can just put a little debug marker there. And when I click debug test, or sorry, don't click these. These are part of the PowerShell extension. You'll want to go over here and choose debug test. It will go ahead and start running the test, and here I am paused in my script where that was being debugged. If I were loading in an external script, which I'll show separately here, this would have stopped at the place in my script where I would have marked that thing. And then in addition to my test that I have over here, and where I'm at in this test, you can debug just like any other PowerShell script. So I can see what my current variables are because I'm running in pester. There's some extra pester stuff here, but I can see everything else about the environment. I can set watch points if I want. If I want to do, if I just want to see what the PS edition is of my thing, it'll show there, and that'll update as I go. This is all standard PowerShell debugging stuff, which is covered in other videos. But just showing that in order to do a debug of a test now, you don't have to choose, like, go up here and start an interactive or do a run with pester. You can just simply go to the test. In fact, the default is just simply left-clicking a test debugs it. And so if I take that off, now it just runs again. And you'll notice when you debug a test, normally when you right-click a test and run it, it just runs in the background, and you can see the results there by clicking this little show output button up here. You can watch it do those test runs down at the bottom. Whoops. If I do the show output here, and I'm just going to move this to the side so it's easier to see. This little output panel, whenever I'm doing any kind of changes to tests, like if I go back and make this back how it was, save. You'll see all the activity that's normally happening happens in this nice little background process. And this background process uses a new API that I developed for Node.js that streams all the objects in a really nice, fast way. And that's what enables us to be able to kind of individually do these tests and kind of save them and rerun them and have everything work really nice and performant and have a nice, really fast, snappy interface thing, rather than having to, typically you're used to with pester tests, you know, when you run tests, you know, you typically have to either wait to the end to get results or watch the screen. I developed a way to make it so that you can just sort of see those tests in real time. And so when I go up here and I run this, I kind of go through and it runs all the tests. And we get kind of different statuses. So if I click an individual test, it'll take me right to it and show me what the problem was there. Tests can be skipped. So if you have some kind of thing in there of a test being skipped, it'll put that in there. And if they were skipped for a particular reason, it'll tell you why that was. So one of the really nice things about this extension too is this concept of test cases. So what's really nice in PowerShell and pester is that sometimes when you want to test things, you don't want to have to write a function over and over and over again just to test the same thing. So here's an example where I simply want this underscore where it should not be null or empty. Just whatever's provided shouldn't be null or empty. And then I have these test cases, 1, 2, red, and blue. So typically in the past with pester, you pretty much like had to run all these test cases by themselves. But with the extension, it's actually able to go through and detect your test cases. So this test case array and then this bracket of the underscore, which means, you know, whatever object is part of the test case, you'll see that it's actually 1, 2, red, blue, and be able to pull those through. And then here's a separate one with hash table, and same thing, 1, 2, red, blue, where it's reading the name from that hash table. And we can get more complicated. If we have a really complicated one, describe nested for each with a name and a symbol, you'll see that comes through as cactus that, as well as a bunch of stuff under there that's nested, as well as my other nested for each with giraffe and that, and all the same kind of tests, but there. So all our individual test cases that we have can show up over here, and we can run them individually and test that they all work as expected. So that's really nice, because in the past you would just kind of get a summary of your test cases and hope one of them goes through. But now you have this really nice view of every single individual test case and keep testing against that case until you get it right. And you can debug test cases too. All the debug stuff continues to work as expected. Okay, so that's like some examples of that. And then also it's very good at detecting issues. So for instance, if you have a syntax error, for instance, in this file, you'll see this file has this long -- or, which is not a real character. It'll let you know if you have an issue in your pester file. And so it'll show you right where the issues are with your pester file, and you can go through and find, okay, that's where I messed up that file. And same thing with like the describe syntax. If I go to this file, I'll see, oh, I'm missing my final bracket here. And so it lets you know that here, you know, you're missing a closing bracket. So I put in the closing bracket and then save it. That fixes the test. And if I take it off, that breaks it again. So you get this real nice real-time feedback about things that you're doing in your test. And it's really important for that because when you're developing these things, it's really nice to have feedback as soon as possible so that you can fix the test or fix whatever code that's being tested so that you can always know, that you're doing something. And that's great because if you have, if you're making changes in your primary code, you want to make sure that, like what you didn't break anything. So all your previous tests, you can make sure that still works. And I'll show a bit of what that looks like here in a minute. And it works with even tests with spaces and has all those aspects too. So we have this really nice interface now to run tests. So let's go ahead and go to an example of an actual program. So this is a program called PowerConfig. This is a PowerShell module that I've written that provides a really nice interface. If we go here to the README, preview it. It provides basically this really nice sort of configuration engine for PowerShell scripts and PowerShell things, where you can have this sort of centralized place where you have settings and then allow people to specify a JSON file, specify environment variables, additional plugins, a hash table, JSON, YAML, TOML, anything they want, however they want to specify configuration to your script, and it all gets merged together in this really nice key value pair. So this is a really handy little PowerShell module that I developed. And so it has its own code here under the public and the private. And you can look at, for instance, an individual command. Here's add PowerConfig object. That just kind of does this and adds this object. But then I have my folder of tests here. So my PowerConfig tests, and I got a bunch of different tests to test a bunch of different individual scenarios. So you'll notice without me even doing anything, these green check marks have already showed up over here. So with my pester test adapter, and again, probably going to need to reload again because I keep changing things. So now my test explorer's come here and it's found my tests files automatically without me having to do anything. And it can go through and discover all those individual test files that are there. So for instance, YAML reads a YAML file. Here it is right here. So if I run my test, that works and it's able to read the file. And this mock that I have, this test YAML, should be level 2 value. So let's go ahead and break this test just for fun. So if I go here in my mocks, and I go to my test YAML. I'm just going to open this to the side. So this says that this level 1, level 2 value should be level 2 value. What if I change it to a level 1, level 2 should be broken? Well, that's like me making a change in my code. If I went into the code and I changed something to break. So now that I've done that, if I rerun my test, oh, now my test is broken. And if I go to it, it will show me that expected the strings to be same, but they were different. Expected that it was level 2 value. Turns out it's broken. So, oh, okay. So I know I need to go and fix this individual item here. And if I wanted to debug this, I can go to, for instance, stopping here and run the test with the debug. And it'll take me right to this line. And so I can see, okay, what was this value supposed to be? And if I go here to my variables, I can see there's a YAML config variable, and I can look at environment and look at the value. And okay, it should be level 1. For instance, I can add this to a watch, so I can watch it. If I get that right, I think I need value actually. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, I want the value. So this is what I want. I want to add that as a watch. I was really not wanting to. So here's another way you can make a watch is you can just take the thing you want to watch and just add it as an expression. And so here I am seeing that I'm at broken. Okay, fine. So that thing's broken. That's fine. It's causing my test to break. So let's go back here to my YAML file and fix it again. Go back, save it. Now it's fixed. And I can, again, go to my test, in my test view, find that test that's broken, debug it, get myself to stop there, and I can see, okay, this now should work. And as soon as I finish my test, Now my test is green and it works. And you'll notice that this is a bright green versus a darker green. You may not be able to see that. It lets you know which tests you haven't run since the last time you opened the program, which is nice because you can know if you have outdated tests. If you save or change a file and you don't have the auto run turned on, it'll also put these into an outdated state so that you'll know that you need to run them again. Great, so there we go. There's an example of doing like some real world tests and different examples of tests that can run. So I didn't have to do anything special to make this work. These are just normal pester tests. This is a repository that I actually haven't made a commit change to in a while, like back since June. But all I had to do was load this extension. The extension is called Pester Tests on the marketplace. I'll go ahead and pull it up here. Oops. Thought I had a second. And I don't use StreamMate, if you can probably tell. So now you realize that I had to close my browser window accidentally and killed that. So let's go ahead and bring back. Thankfully, I was able to get back in quick. So go back to my screen here again. Okay, so we'll go back to here and see if I can show what I was showing here. So again, I've made a change here in a while. And so if we go ahead and hopefully I won't break it this time. If we first go over here and you just search, you'll see the extension is called Pester Tests. And so there's a currently, I'm currently running off my preview beta version, but you can find the older version here in the marketplace. The newer version will get pushed out here pretty soon. And you can also go to the repository here, which has more information about the extension and also information about how to install the latest version of the beta version of this, which is pretty straightforward. You're just able to go to this little check mark, look at the build, and then you can just pull down the VSIX and then install it into your VS Code. And you've always got whatever the latest beta version is. So that is the general overview of the extension. There's some additional stuff coming like tag support. Already it shows tags. If I go for my basic tests here, you'll see there should be a test on your test with tags. Now let me blow this up a little bit so it's easier to see. And so here, a little context, you can see whatever tags you have for your test. I don't think this filter works for this description yet, but no. But in the new version, which is waiting for the next version of VS Code to come out, it will have these tags actually be searchable and filterable, like with this @ symbol. If you do an @ you'll be able to see, for instance, just the executed tests. And you'll also be able to filter to just the tests that are in this file. Like that. And then the @ like for instance, if you have different tests that you've tagged as like integration or tests, you'll just be able to do @ and that and have only those tests show up here for you to be able to test and run and do all that kind of thing. You can also hide tests and make it so that certain tests don't run. There's lots of different options there. So what I've done is I've basically just implemented that part of the pester testing, and I just wanted to show a little bit here with the time we have left, a little bit about how that works and how you kind of make a PowerShell, how you make an extension for VS Code. This is a little bit not so directly PowerShell focused, but it is really nice to kind of see how this kind of thing can come together because I had never even touched TypeScript before I started this project wanting to make this extension. So I learned TypeScript doing this, and I think always the best is to learn by doing. So if we come back here, what I did was I built this first thing I had to do is I had to make this way to get stuff from PowerShell into the Visual Studio Code interface. So one thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to make an existing runner. I first went out there and looked at what was available, and there was this module called Node PowerShell, which worked okay, but it had a few problems with it that my needs. For instance, one is that you don't get the result until the whole script runs. And that wasn't going to work for me because I don't want for you to click run on my testing interface and then have to sit there and just see a bunch of spinning circles waiting for the test to complete. I want to be able to give you real-time status of, okay, now we're on this test, and now that test is done, and now we're on this test. So I had to come up with a better way to make that work. And so what I did was I looked into real deeply how PowerShell worked, and I came up with this sort of interface. So I'm going to hop through kind of what it looks like on a high level here, and then I'll go into sort of what the actual code looks like. So when we have something like this, we start with a script, and we have a script that we want to run and get this information. So in order to make this work, we take this script and we start up a new PowerShell instance, and I added a little bit of magic so that it knows which version of PowerShell you're using. So if you're on PowerShell 5.1, it'll spin up Windows PowerShell, whichever version of PowerShell that you have in your Visual Studio Code down here. Like, see, I'm on 7.1 here, but if you were to switch to Windows PowerShell, it'll automatically start running the tests in Windows PowerShell, so you can test in different versions. And so since I have that, then I take that script and I pass it into this PowerShell just via what's called standard in, which is basically when you run a process, there's this way that you can sort of pass a script to a PowerShell process rather than having to manually type it in. So then what the PowerShell does is there's this little special wrapper that gets enabled that creates a new run space and runs your pester test inside this nice little isolated PowerShell process. And so by doing that, we're able to have this nice runner that we don't have to destroy and rebuild every time. Because starting up PowerShell as a process, like, it only takes maybe 500 milliseconds to a second. But in order to be able to run those tests like I do, I want to be able to call it over and over and over again. So if we have everything just warmed up to the point that we're just running pester inside this nice little warmed up instance, things are going to be a lot faster. Things are going to be cached. There's not going to be a lot of that initialization. So we needed something to be able to do this. Another nice thing is that everything runs in this run space. So if the run space crashes or you throw a throw or something happens, it's all running in this little sort of jailed sandbox. So I don't have to worry about my overall controller script, which I need to be able to get the information back out into my extension from crashing. It all just runs in that nice little box. And the other nice thing about running into that box is that I can get, one of the great things about PowerShell is everything you do is an object. So rather than have to deal with the console and deal with text and format it and do any of that kind of stuff, I can get these objects back. Whenever you do a write host, I get an information record back. Whenever you do a write warning, I get a warning record back. And I have these objects that I can take that are really nice and be able to do something with rather than having to try to funge text and work with it. So once that run space completes, it takes those objects and it outputs them to all these streams. And you can actually get these little .NET variables you can set up that just load up these queues with these streams, with these objects, rather than send me, output text. And so now that I have those, my overall controller script can take those objects and in a streaming fashion as they arrive, just like when you use the pipeline, convert them to JSON, just simple JSON serialization, which Node.js, which is JavaScript and TypeScript, it understands JSON really well. In fact, JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, is where it came from. So it's a really nice, easy format. And that convert to JSON PowerShell commandlet makes it really easy to take any PowerShell object or .NET object and convert it to a JSON. So it takes that and then it sends it back to my little listener back across the standard out, which is just the output of this program. And so now that I'm just getting all these little JSON strings into my listener, I can set up a thing in Node.js called a pipeline, which basically I can make all these little pipes that do different things. I can have one that just looks for, I have one that simply just looks for new lines. So every time a new line starts, that's my indication that it's a different object because all I'm getting is a stream of text across standard out. So that now breaks up all those things into individual new lines and then passes that to the next step of a pipeline, just like how the PowerShell pipeline works. Then it takes that chunk and passes it to my next step in my process, which takes that JSON string and rehydrates it into a rehydrates it into a TypeScript object. And then after that step, then it passes it to the handler that looks at those objects and finds out if they're part of an individual stream. Like, was that an object from the warning stream or was that an object from the information stream? And based on that, go ahead and put them into these little buckets, different streams that can then be picked up by my program to then do anything else. And so you kind of see that here, where they get converted to objects. We go through and we resplit the streams, and now we have these additional streams at the TypeScript level that are these TypeScript objects or JavaScript objects that now I can consume in VS Code. So without me really having to do anything to the script, I just make a script. The script outputs stuff. In my case, it sort of hacks into Pester and starts outputting objects as they get done. And the rest of it just happens for me automatically. And now I have these really nice, clean paths of my messages coming in that now I can act on these. And I can act on these in what's called an asynchronous way, which basically just means like I don't have to process them sequentially. Just as they come in, I can set up little handlers that then go through and do all the work that I want to do to update my Pester interface and update that the tests are running. So we'll see what that looks like over here. So first off, what I have is I had to figure out a way to, make that work. So I started with this Pester interface script. So this is a script. I'm not going to go too much into the detail of it because it's a little bit complicated, but I'm just going to hit the key things. So this is a script that I made that simply talks to Pester and gets into Pester in a way. Let me just go through here real quick. But basically what it does is it goes into Pester and it injects, there's a piece here, add Pester plugin shim. So this basically goes into Pester, goes into the private code of Pester because all Pester is just a PowerShell module. And it goes into Pester and simply goes in there and sticks in a couple little plugins in certain parts of Pester so that when Pester is running, when it gets to the point that it has an update about when it's discovered a test, or it gets to a point where it has finished the test and has a result, rather than wait to the end or output a text, I actually force it to output, take that object, convert it to a JSON, and send it out that standard out pipe, just like I showed in that workflow. So that's great. And then a lot of this is mostly just boilerplate around making that work. So a lot of this is just simply like taking that and then creating those objects and then creating these special kind of objects I want to receive that describe the test and have all kind of information about was there an error, what file is it, what's the start and end line so that I can report that in the code coverage, which is coming in a future release. What's the label for it? Did it succeed? How long did the test take? And you saw that on the duration there. Again, if the test failed, what was the message? What was expected? What was actual? It goes through and just extracts all that information out of that Pester test object and then gives that to me in a nice flat format that's really easy to work with on the other side. So that's my Pester interface. And in fact, and of course, because I'm doing a Pester thing, of course, I have tests to make sure that the interface works. So here's a place where I'm doing a setup. Before all, I'm setting up some mocks. I'm importing the module and reforcing it to load each time to flush out my little shim that I put in there each time. And then after each time, go ahead and remove any pipe and unload the module, just so that every time I run a test, I know that I'm getting a clean environment. And so here I am, and here I am running my Pester interface and giving an example of this is what my test adapter is going to call to find out what tests are available. So it's going to ask for the paths of the test files. It's going to ask to do a discovery. And in a couple cases, it'll ask for a named pipe. My test adapter will give it what's called a named pipe, which is it's all you need to know is that it's just like a special channel that you can set up that's out of band of everything so that it can report objects. And I have to do this in order to make the interactive debugging work, but we'll leave that alone. And then, of course, do a dry run. Like, don't actually run the tests, but just simply, this is when you're going through and you click and you want to see what tests are available. Pester has this dry run feature where you can have it just discover what the tests are, but not actually run the test to keep things fast. And so that's what I'm doing here. And so I'm just testing that works. So that's my Pester interface. So then the other thing I needed was I needed a way to run PowerShell scripts to do that whole, if I come back to this one, I needed a way to do this whole thing of basically have a script be able to take a command that my VS Code adapter module is running and spin up this little run space, do all the work in there, and then return back that JSON information as streams. So that's what this PowerShell runner script does. It simply takes a script block. There's a bunch of different options that let me tune and tweak what I'm doing, depending on the particular environment that I'm running. And basically what it does is it comes down here it starts a new PowerShell instance, and it also caches the instance. So for instance, if when you run the script, it just keeps it running so that when you run future commands, it doesn't have to start up a whole PowerShell instance every time it's doing it. It just simply reuses the same instance unless I've specifically told it, no, I want you to do a new PowerShell instance every single time, which can be useful, for instance, if you're testing pester scripts and you have side effects and you're thinking like you're setting global variables, that kind of thing. Those are going to persist in the environment. You should be cleaning that stuff up, but maybe as a troubleshooting step, you want to have it run clean every single time. That's basically why that exists there. And so again, this is all basically .NET calls, but it's pretty easy to follow what's going on. Basically, I want to add the script that I provide. I want to do this thing where I basically want to take all the streams and merge them into one stream, because I'll be able to tell what the streams are, because the objects are going to come out as warning objects, information objects, error records. And so I'll be able to flag those as they come across the line. But for now, I don't need a bunch of different things. And so rather than have it output to the console, your typical text that you see, I want to use these things called PS data collections, which this is just an internal PowerShell thing that lets me, when I said like it would put those into those buckets, I want to have a couple buckets to send that stuff to. Then I have some additional little helper functions, little pipeline functions that help me like make sure if it's just a primitive object like a string or a number, I don't need to wrap it in all kinds of stuff. And I also have this other thing that I want to add a little type hint. I want to be able to make it so that when the object shows up on my side, I can have a little extra property that'll tell me if it's a hash table, or at least what it was in PowerShell, if it was a hash table, or if it was a user record from AD. And that can be helpful in my program as I'm consuming these things, because I wrote this not just for the pester test. I want this to be able to be used for maybe other extensions or other TypeScript programs that I want to use PowerShell with, like an Azure function, for instance. So it might be helpful to me to know what kind of type that previous thing was so I can translate it into whatever I want to be doing in TypeScript. And then this is the part that goes through and just takes those stream identifiers and adds them. How are we doing for time? Got a little bit more. And takes those and then adds in that additional information. And this is just the little flag that's going to let me know what kind of stream it came from. And then finally, just take that. It takes that object, it converts it to JSON, and then it does basically, rather than out to, you would usually just output an object or do write output, I'm doing a direct call to the console. I want this basically to go directly to standard out, which typically standard out is going to be like on your terminal. That's, I suppose, going to show up on your screen. But because of the way that I'm calling this, I'm having VS Code actually start the program, but then attach to that standard out, so that it basically just spits it out into that standard out like a pipe. And then my program receives it on the pipe. It's just plain text. And all it's getting is these little single line JSON strings, which I'll show you here in a minute of that stuff coming in. And then it's taking that and reconverting it into objects and rehydrating it. So I have basically a little inter-process communication listener, just like if you were making like a REST API call. You request something, it does the work, it sends you back a response in JSON, and invoke REST method automatically like decodes that JSON into an object for you. It's that exact same concept, but what I'm doing is all local to my computer, and it's all just happening over these named pipes. But because of the way that I implemented it, it could just as easily, like this PowerShell runner could be on a completely different computer or running as a web service, and all that stuff will work through all this pipelining stuff. So that's really handy. Then I go ahead and I start the script. This is what's called an async call, which basically means as soon as I call this command, it's not going to sit here and wait for the script to complete. It's going to run it and sort of background it, kind of like a job, although not exactly like a job, because this is basically doing it at a .NET level. It's doing an asynchronous task, and it'll run it in the background. And so what that lets me do is that lets me go ahead and continue here and then start working on the output. So these PS output, that PS output object that I've talked about before, these PS data collections have kind of a nifty behavior. What they can do is they implement this interface in C# called IEnumerable. And all that simply means is that it's this very low-level thing that makes it so you can say, hey, when you iterate through this object or enumerate this object, if you want to look through it like if it's an array, somebody can implement special behavior. So what they did was they made it so that this thing actually blocks on the enumeration. So when I pipe this to out JSON standard out, the first thing that PowerShell does is start enumerating this object. But the neat thing about this is once it gets this object is actually not fully complete yet. It gets results streamed to it from this begin invoke as it gets set there. And so the way that the behavior of the object is that it will actually stop the script and wait until an object shows up. And when an object shows up, it will take that and pass it down the pipeline to out JSON standard out so that it can send it along the line. And then it will pause the script again until it gets another result. And it will stay there until the full result of the object has been completed, and then it'll move on with the script. So that gives me this really nice way to stream objects in real time as things are happening in the script without having to wait for it to complete. And then finish the invocation and then clear out this instance so it can be used again. But again, we don't kill the run space, we keep it alive so that we can reuse it. And now it's already got Pester preloaded. It's already got whatever additional modules your script may have needed preloaded. So it uses a little bit more memory, but as a result, it's much, much faster. I mean, if you disable this thing, it might take 2 to 3 seconds for a test to run or get started to run. With this enabled, it's like, less than 100 milliseconds. It's just ready to go, and it's just sitting there receiving stuff and doing it. And then we do a little more cleanup stuff. And then finally, because of the way that the pipes work, I open this pipe and the process is running, but I need a way to tell my program that it's complete. So I just make this really kind of simple special JSON object that just has the invocation ID and this message of finished. And then it goes ahead and just sends one last item down that pipeline to my adapter, letting it know, hey, this script is finished. This script with this particular ID has finished. So that lets my program know, okay, I don't have to wait for any more objects to show up. I can just go ahead and start processing those objects, or I can go ahead and release control so that the next script can run. So those are sort of the two pieces, and those are the pieces that I had to write in PowerShell to provide that information. Again, these have tests as well, and I can run all these tests, just sort of the same way. Well, I think some of these might not work. Okay, good, those worked. But here's a simple test where I'm simply taking my thing in. Am I doing on time here? Taking objects in and translating them, and invoking the runner using that invocation that's in the PowerShell runner. And just testing, hey, if I send a 1 down the line, do I get a 1 back? If I send a double down the line, do I get 1.5 back? If I send a pester string back, do I get pester back as an object? And that's just sort of testing primitives that are coming through. Okay, so that's the PowerShell side of things. That's how, when I send stuff to PowerShell, how it gets run and operated. So on the VS Code side of things, this is going to look like Greek. So if you don't understand TypeScript, you'll be in the same place I was 2 months ago, because I would look at the stuff and I'm like, I have no idea what any of this means. And that's fine. You don't have to worry about what it means right now. Basically, every VS Code extension starts with this activate function. This is sort of like a main entry point that when the extension gets started, this is the first thing that happens. And so I have all my logic in other places. So basically all I want to do is, the first thing I want to do is make sure that the PowerShell extension is installed. And so I just have this function that if I right click here and I go to definition, I just have this function that goes through and I just want to test, is PowerShell or PowerShell Preview installed? If not, I want my extension to immediately error and say, hey, you have to have PowerShell or PowerShell Preview installed. So you show a warning message, which will pop up that little VS Code warning you've probably seen every once in a while. And then sit there and wait until extensions change. And so once somebody goes to install an extension, do the same thing again. Run the test, and if it does finally activate, now we can go ahead and activate our script, or activate our extension. Great. So again, then we just have sort of a final test that, like, hey, if that didn't work, go ahead and bail out. And then finally, there's this context subscriptions push. All this basically means is that I want to add a thing that when this extension is closed, delete it. This is sort of like a list of things, an array of disposables can be added. This basically just means is that I'm going to add my pester test controller, which is an implementation of this thing that allows me to do all this testing and all that kind of stuff. And when the person closes the thing or disables my extension or whatever, I want this stuff to all go away and have the memory freed up. So that's sort of like the core of what an extension looks like. And so if you're building a VS Code extension, everything starts here. And so you could write everything right here, or you can break it out into separate files, whatever. So what I then go to is I have my actual PowerShell test controller. And this is a big old long thing with all kinds of logic and doing all kinds of stuff. But basically, this is the piece that implements what I want to do. This is the thing that handles resolving tests. It handles the run profiles to actually run the test. This does all the work. But the key thing eventually that it gets to after all this handling and discovery is this method that I have here called start pester interface. And what this will do is this basically receives tests that the program sends me. The VS Code, when I click play or you click play, this function gets called eventually that says, hey, run pester against these items. And so we skip all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And first thing I do is I build my command, I build all that pester interface stuff. And then finally, I run the command and get the objects back. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to run my extension in debug mode. And this will bring me up a new PowerShell window. This is kind of a neat thing about extension development is you can run your extension as you build it and kind of get detailed stuff as you're working on it. So I'm going to have my debug console here. I'm going to make this my whole screen just to make this a little bit easier to work with. Bring this over here, bring this here. And so here I am in that sandbox, which you saw earlier. And if I go to my test adapter, there it is. And you'll see here it is initializing. And when it initializes, it just starts up these little file watchers and sees, okay, I found these different pester tests in your environment. So when I go to expand one of these, and that's where this comes from. And now I have these, but I don't actually have to start pester, start PowerShell, or any of that kind of stuff at this point. So that's why it comes up so fast, is all it's got to do is look for files and show it's there. And so that's why it's really responsive, as well as being very lightweight. This is what's called lazy loading, where you don't want to load stuff until somebody actually uses it. Because if somebody starts up VS Code, and they don't even want to do something pester related, you don't want to load all the pester stuff and slow down their computer, even though they don't. You probably see this in a lot of testing suites or programs like Photoshop where they take forever to load. It's because they're loading all the components, even if you're not actually going to use it. Instead, we only want to load the stuff at the point you're actually trying to use it so that everything stays fast in case you're not planning to use it. Just a little bit more time here. I'm just going to show these objects in action. So I'm going to go ahead and expand this item. And you'll see we have a few steps. First, my thing's been added to a discovery queue, which is just a thing. And so that queue just waits a minute. And okay, now we're starting discovery. So we don't have a PowerShell instance yet, so we're going to go ahead and start one up. Undefined here just means start up the default pester instance of whatever's being used. So now, at this point, now we have started a PowerShell in the background with that controller that I talked about. Now it's going to go through and run a script. You'll see it's running the script in the worker, and it's calling this special script, that pester interface script that I said. It says, I want to do a discovery, and I want to discover this particular file, test with spaces. And now it goes and it does that whole process. It goes up, it starts invoke pester, it runs pester, it does that little shim where it creates those JSON objects coming back. And then when that JSON object comes back, I have a little thing called a log point, which tells me this object coming back. So here in received, at the very point that that message was coming back, here's the JSON that I got back. And VS Code has this really nice way of taking JSON and formatting it into a really nice kind of view. But this is just a JSON. You can kind of see it up here. Here's kind of the detail of the JSON. So here it is, and here's my object coming back. So this is just that same PowerShell object. Remember all that stuff I showed you, ID, file, label, message, parent, etc. All that stuff coming across. But it also has some additional detail like the results and all that kind of stuff. And I've also, at this point, I've also stripped off that extra stuff like what stream it was from and that kind of thing. And so now that I have the info about what the test is, I can add that test to the file and have it here. And then there's that information there. And remember that finished object that I said, now I received that finished object, that there's the invocation, and here it is that it's done. That's basically just letting my script know, this thing's done. You can stop with the little spinny thing. You can go ahead and say the script is done. So when we run a test, same process happens. We run the script. This time we're running the pester interface, but we're not doing discovery. We actually want to run the script. And because I clicked run on this particular item, I actually want to run the script that is located at line 2. You see it right there. And so what I get back is I get back the actual pester output. And so you see here, it's showing me the information stream, and I'm doing discovery finished, running tests, all these steps until I finally get my actual result. And so it's able to take all that information and read it in real time into here. So if I see starting discovery in 1 files, starting discovery finished, running tests, running tests. So that's how that works. I've hit my time, but I hope that gives you a great idea of both. If you use Pester a lot, this is a great new tool to go out and install and use to run your tests, and also show you how you can use these things. So there's a question about, is there a dependency with Pester version? Yes, this requires Pester 5 because of things that are new in Pester 5 that allowed me to do this in real time anyways. So you can't use Pester 4 with this. You must use Pester 5 or above. In fact, specifically 5.2.2 or above, and it will warn you about that. So will there be any issue using test drive? Because it runs in a run space, it's no different than running it in a normal process. So if you're using test drive, you will be able to, it'll still go to the same temp. It'll create its own test drive and do that kind of thing. So even though I say like I'm creating a run space, it is kind of a separate PowerShell process. So I have other tests in here that use test drive that work just fine. So if I go back to Power Config, this one has some tests that use test drive in here somewhere, or maybe the other one. But yeah, basically like you run the tests and they'll come up just fine. Although you don't use the run test button, this stuff will go away hidden later, but I'll take care of that later. So I don't believe that there are any other questions. I don't want to take up too much time of the next presenter. So again, thank you very much. Again, the extension is available on the VS Code Marketplace, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye.